Good afternoon, and thank you all for standing by. I'd like to inform all participants that your lines have been placed on a listen-only mode until the question and answer session of today's call. Today's call is also being recorded. If anyone has any objections, you may disconnect at this time. I would now like to turn the call over to Mr. Eric Coyle, Data Dissemination Specialist with the U.S. Census Bureau. Thank you, sir. You may begin.
All right. Thank you very much. So thank you all very much for joining us today with the Data on the Deadline webinar. This is a makeup session that we did because of the overwhelming response we had to the original webinar that was scheduled last Monday. So thank you all for those that were able to make it to that particular webinar. We know there was some confusion with the time frame that it was supposed to begin. So we're glad that we were able to do this for everybody that couldn't make that webinar or wasn't able to join at the time that it was scheduled. So the Data on the Deadline webinar, we'll get right into it since, based on the topic, we want to go ahead and make sure we can get to our deadline of 1 hour. So one of the things we'll cover, I always like to go into a little bit about us as an agency. Who are we? What do we do? And we also are going to cover the American Community Survey, which is where a large amount of the data that is used in our data tools, our quick access, easy-use data tools comes from. So also do a brief overview of the Longitudinal Employer Household Dynamics Program, the LEHD program, because there's some great easy access tools that use that particular data. And some of the other ways that you can just go about accessing our data through census.gov and even our new data platform, data.census.gov. So with that, I wanted to give you just a little bit of information about who we are and what we do as an agency. So the Census Bureau, as most people think of it, is not just a once every 10-year organization. We're not just out there once every 10 years counting the population in accordance with our Constitutional Amendment, Article 1, Section 2, which requires us to do so once every 10 years, and we've been doing since 1790. But we are actually out there every month of every single year collecting data, and that actually amounts to over 130 surveys and programs altogether. So, of course, as I mentioned, the most familiar and most commonly known is the decennial census, which, again, required by the Constitution as a means to reapportion the House and redistrict the states, and also provide funding to states based on the population in those states. So it is very important, of course, and you could say the most important of different programs that we do. Then there's also the American Community Survey, which serves as a replacement for the previously used long-form census as a means to sample the population every single month of every year and release that data in annual estimates at the end of the year. So previous year is collection, and then the following year that data is released typically in the fall. So we're out there conducting all these different surveys and different programs on behalf of many different agencies. Many of you may have heard about the unemployment numbers that come out every month from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. So every month you'll get that notification saying, new Labor Department numbers. When in actuality, yes, the Labor Department, the BLS, does sponsor a portion of the current population survey where that data comes from. However, it is conducted by the Census Bureau. So we're out there collecting the data on behalf of many different agencies out there, which does include the American Housing Survey we do on behalf of HUD, and some of the other surveys on behalf of CDC, Fish and Wildlife survey that's out there. So many different programs and surveys. A lot of the data that you may see out there is actually being collected by the Census Bureau and just may be, in fact, sponsored by many different agencies that are out there. So the ACS, as I mentioned, is the largest national household survey. And it does go out to approximately 3.5 million addresses every single year, and that averages out to about just over 290,000 plus addresses every month of every year. Now, this survey does include 20,000 group quarter facilities, and if you're not familiar with what a group quarter facility is, essentially that's any facility that falls into the category of a nursing home, a correctional facility, military barracks, or even a college dorm. All those would fall under the category of group quarters. So those are included in the American Community Survey as part of the sample. This data is collected throughout the year, and the following year it is released in our one-year estimates for populations of 65,000 or more, one-year supplemental estimates, which cover 20,000 or more population sizes, and then you have the 5-year estimates for those populations that would go below the 20,000 threshold. So you get that for all geographies down to the block group. And if you don't know what the block group is, I'll make sure you do when we cover it in geography. So why do we have the ACS? Well, essentially the ACS was implemented because of two very important reasons. The cost, primarily the cost of the decennial census, is very expensive. By the year 2000, there was also including a 1 in 6 household sample, which was that long form. So the cost of that was very expensive, and thus we knew we needed to deal with it. And the way that we dealt with it was by implementing the American Community Survey. So that was fully implemented in 2005, and then thus the long form census was discontinued after 2000. So in 2010, short form only, no more long form census, and which now all that data is being collected from the American Community Survey. So the other issue, in addition to cost, was the currency of the data. It's now 2019. If we were still relying on data from the 2000, let's say 10 census, if they still have the long form, that data wouldn't be very useful for very many different reasons. So the difference between these two programs to understand essentially is that the ACS is a sample of the population where we're seeing the changes and the trends over a period of time, and we're able to look at that year after year, versus the decennial, which is giving you an official count of the population once every 10 years, primarily used to reapportion the House, redistrict states, and also provide funding to those states. So that's why only the short form is necessary to accomplish that task. But in terms of what you're getting every single year now versus waiting every 10 years, you're now getting all this information every single year in regard to the social characteristics, demographics, economic data, as well as the housing. But the beauty is now you're not just looking at 40-plus topics, you're actually looking at a total of over 450 topics altogether that you can cross-tabulate between looking at things like grandparents by age or Hispanic origin or race or relationship or sex. So you can look at school enrollment by the same different types of demographics. So all this data that you're looking at can be cross-tabulated in various ways. So it does, in fact, give you a lot more information than what you're just looking at in terms of those basic variable topics. So now the ACS, as I mentioned, does produce this data every single year, and it's typically around the fall. So they don't have a scheduled release date for the 2018 data, but it'll pretty much be close to what you're looking at now on the screen. So the data that was released in 2017 was pretty similar to that was released in 2016, or for the 2016 estimates. So you can see that, come September of this year, we'll get the 2018 one-year estimates for populations of 65,000 or more. You'll also get the supplemental estimates for those populations of 20,000 or more, which is not that many tables, about 59 tables. But it does help for people that are looking to get data for those smaller populations in that one-year estimate. And then the 2014, 2018 five-year estimates will most likely be released in December of this year. So again, every year we are producing brand new data that was collected the previous year. Now I want to talk about census geography. Geography is the framework of our data, and it's really important to understand statistical geographic areas as much as it is to understand your basic legal areas. So most people are familiar with your states and counties and cities and zip codes. But there's a lot of statistical areas that many people aren't familiar with, but are really important to have a clear understanding of, especially when it comes to accessing our data. Geography serves as the framework of our data and you're not familiar with that framework, you're going to have a really hard time getting data through our different data tools. So regions are pretty simple to understand. There's 4 regions, north, south, east, west, essentially. And then those are broken into divisions, collections of states within each region. And then there's another one that's pretty common for statistical areas, but not commonly known, which is a census-designated place. So what is a census-designated place? A CDP is essentially an area of population that is considered a town or a city of some sort, but it is unincorporated. So essentially, it's an area with no legal function but does have population, and it has been requested to be identified as a census-designated place, or CDP as it's referred to. And that request is usually done by the county. The county will request an area. They say, hey, there's a city here, there's a town, there's people in it. We'd like you to actually count it and have it delineated as such. And they'll provide that information to the Census Bureau. We'll be happy to do that. But it's not automatic. It has to be a request or an agreement through the county with the Census Bureau to identify, legally identify an area as a census-designated place for the purposes of statistics, providing statistics for that area. So there could be unincorporated areas out there that are towns, cities and towns that may not be identified as CDPs, and you may have a really hard time trying to find them in some of our data tools. For those areas, they would probably most likely fall under a census county division, which is an area below county level that is essentially unincorporated and not identified as a CDP. So the public use microdata areas are also really important because they are they are a means of being able to look at the raw data, of course without any identifying information, and being able to take that data that is provided through various tools like our Data Ferret tool or the IPUMS tool to actually create your own tables. So public use microdata areas consist of population sizes of 100,000 or more, and they are subdivisions of states. And in these areas, again, you can pull the data for those population sizes through our PUMS files, public use microdata sample files, in those tools I mentioned, and actually create your own tables. A lot of tables in American Fact Finder are preset. They cannot be changed. You cannot change age groups or anything like that. So for grant writers that are working with specific age groups or other specific ranges of data that they need that we don't have those specific tables for, they can actually go into Data Ferret and create their own tables specifically for the data they're looking for. And then you have something called the zip code tabulation areas, which are also created by the Census Bureau, owned by the Census Bureau, to correlate with most of the zip codes that you're probably familiar with that are associated with population. But what the zip code tabulation areas do are remove any of those or absorb any of those zip codes that would have that would be attached to a PO box or a large postal customer. So zip code tabulation areas, I work with a lot of different business owners and entrepreneurs that love data at the zip code level. But if you want data on the population at that level, you would have to use the zip code tabulation area. And you'll see that as an option in a lot of different data tools that we have. The census tracts, which is what you're looking at on the screen, is probably the most popular of geographies, of census geographies. And the reason why is mainly because they are relatively permanent and they are owned by the Census Bureau as well. And if they change, it's usually it's going to be once every 10 years. It's very rare for a census tract to change between a decennial census. So the tracts are subdivisions of counties, and they are based on population size and housing units. And I'll show you those here in a second. Below a census tract, you have a block group. That is the second lowest level of geography, but it is the lowest level of geography for the American Community Survey. The ACS does not go below the block group level. Now, the block groups are subdivisions of tracts and also based on population size and housing units. The lowest level or base level of geography is going to be your census block. That is the lowest level, and it is not based on population size or housing units, and only decennial census data is available at that low-level geography. Okay, so what that looks like, if you're trying to kind of visualize it and put it together, when you have a census block, that base level geography, which only decennial census data is available at, that block, all those blocks out there, essentially combine into one block group, and that block group could be the 1,000 or 2,000 or 3,000. We're looking at the 3,000 block group. The 3,000 block group combines with the other block groups, as you can see, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, and that'll be, each one of those will be given a number based on that first number in that sequence. So block group 3, block group 4, block group 2, block group 1. And then you have the block groups all combining together to form a census tract. So in that tract, you're looking at a collection of block groups, and in the tract joins up to form the county. So that is how our geography is put together, and you can see here in the census tracts, they are optimized for a population of 4,000, even though the range is 12,000 to 8,000 population size. And the same with the block group, 600 to 3,000 population size range there, but they do have an optimization level as well. So the other thing to note is that the term places is one that you'll find in a lot of different data tools that we have, and that term is used to define and describe all cities and towns, including census-designated places. Now getting into the longitudinal employer household dynamics, the LEHD. The LEHD is a really important program that actually combines data with states. So we actually get data from the states. It's a partnership. And through this program, the states provide us with administrative data and jobs data. And so we are able to take that data from the states and combine it with federal data, combine it with survey data, and combine it with other sort of business data that's out there, and basically create these amazing tools that people can use 24/7 to access for free, of course, all this data that's collected and processed through the LEHD program. Now, all the data you're looking at when it comes to the LEHD is related to labor force statistics. So we're looking at jobs and employment, and that's our primary universe for the LEHD program. Now, the LED, the Employment Dynamics Partnership, is part of that program, the overall LEHD program. So the LED program is basically that partnership with the Census Bureau and all the states, with the exception of Wyoming, that has opted out, Puerto Rico and Virgin Islands as well. We are not currently producing data for Wyoming, but you can still get data for Wyoming for previous years, up until 2014 for Wyoming. So it did begin in the late 1990s, and Arizona doesn't go back that far. It only goes back to 2004, but as more states opted into the program to share the data with us, then we were able to go ahead and start producing that data accordingly. So there's three really great tools that are available. There's 5 altogether, but 3 really great useful tools. There's the On the Map, which uses the LEHD origin destination employment statistics loads data to look at where workers live and where they work. And there's the quarterly workforce indicators to look at employment and job creation, new hires, and being able to cross-tabulate all this information with both these tools by different worker characteristics like age, sex, race, ethnicity, even income levels. So there's lots of great flexibility within these tools. There will be further down the road in the webinar series, we're going to have some webinars focusing just on the Map tool, and another webinar that will focus just on the quarterly workforce indicators. So I'd encourage you to make sure you definitely register for those before they turn into waiting list webinars. And there's also the job-to-job flows, which is something newly created to kind of fill the gap and allow people to determine where the jobs are basically going and where they're coming from and what industries. So that's a really great tool to fill that gap of knowing where that information, being able to tabulate that data through those tools. So now we get into, how do we access all this data? We have a lot of different ways through census.gov, and there's even one particular website I always like to showcase that's outside of the Census Bureau's website, but it's still great, and I always make sure I showcase it. So American Fact Finder is the primary data hub that we have for all our different programs going back to the 2000 census. The data is in there. And there's even a download center where you can download every single bit of data. Of course, you'd want to make sure you have a room full of servers to do that. But it is the primary hub, which is actually getting ready to be replaced by our data.census.gov platform, and I'll show you guys that as well. But for now, AFF is here, and it's not going anywhere. It'll still be an archive to be able to access this data that's available within it before it does maybe eventually go away. Our API is also another great way for developers to go in. We have over 20 APIs available for data users, developers to go in, take our data, create their own data tools, create their own maps. The Census Business Builder, for example, uses our API along with the My Congressional District tool and the My Tribal Area and the Quick Facts tool. So using our API, you can actually go in and create your own data tools, specifically providing or producing the data that you want, not just what's in our specific data tools. There's also data profiles and infographics and lots of new other ways that you can access data from the American Community Survey and other programs that I mentioned earlier, like some of the economic census data or the county business patterns. Some of those business program data is available through the Census Business Builder. We also have the interactive maps page where you can go in and look at data, quickly access data for flow using flow patterns between counties and states. It's a quick way to get to some of our data visualizations. There's poverty, income and poverty visualization tool that's in there as well as a health insurance tool. So lots of great ways that you can quickly access visualization tools through our website. This is that QWI Explorer I mentioned earlier, 32 workforce indicators all together. Quick, easy to download, create reports. As soon as you go into this tool, you get data instantly. And it allows you to go down to the county level, and you can actually look at industries not just at the 2-digit NAICS code, if you're not familiar with that, North American Industry Classification System, which is how most industries or most businesses are identified by that specific code. So it allows you to go in from a 2-digit, which is your main sector, to a 4-digit. Gets a little bit more into detail. So if you're looking at a 2-digit sector like retail trade, you can go further into a 4-digit to look at a specific type of that retail trade industry. The Job-to-Jobs Explorer tool, this is, as I mentioned, a great way to look at how workers relocate from state to state. So it is only at the state level currently for the 2-digit code as well, NAICS codes. There's 6 visualization modules, really great ways that you can visualize this data and download it very easily. The On the Map tool, probably one of the most popular tools we have for visualizing data. And what's great about this data tool is that it gets down to the block level. So it gets down to a really low-level geography and allows data users to analyze some of the same stuff you can look at through the QWI in terms of worker characteristics, but only allows you to look at the 2-digit NAICS code because of the fact that it does go down to the block group level. On the Map for Emergency Management was created specifically to combine ACS data and look at how for areas that have been affected and declared a disaster area. So once an area is officially declared, that data, emergency management agencies can go into this, use this tool, and quickly get a profile for those specific areas using ACS data. And something new that is still in its beta form is the Post-Secondary Employment Outcomes tool. This is taking data that was provided through the LED program partnership with the University of Colorado, and I believe the University of Texas is also on board or will be on board for this as well. But you can go in and look at some of the interesting data related to the graduates' earnings, et cetera, related to different types of degrees. And there's the new data platform, which will actually take over American Fact Finder very soon. So data.census.gov, this is going to eventually integrate with census.gov, but for now it's separated while it's still going through updates and getting feedback. So we definitely appreciate everybody providing their feedback, helping us make this tool the best it can be. There's going to be a lot of great changes forthcoming. There's already been a recent update, which has been really, really impressive. We're getting a lot of good feedback, and the more feedback we get, the better this tool will get. So definitely encourage everyone to check it out and provide that feedback. And the last website I always like to showcase is not an actual Census Bureau website, but it's just a really great resource to access current ACS data. So the most current ACS data is available through Census Reporter, and it's so you cannot, the caveat of course is you cannot look at data over time, but you can still get these nice visualizations, and there's an interactive mapping tool, and there's lots of really cool things that you can do with Census Reporter as well. So we ask that you guys, enjoy what you got to be a part of today. Please go ahead and share this on the social media platforms. You can reach out to us through our social media platforms and use our hashtag Census Academy to help promote this new platform for sharing information and sharing data, and really just trying to get the public aware of all this information that exists and let them know that there is support out there. So if you want trainings or you want to share your story with us or something like that, there's ways to do that. So we are collecting ACS data user stories. For those of you that are successful with using ACS data, you were able to get a grant, you were able to figure out where to expand your business or open a business, we definitely encourage you all to share that story with us. It definitely helps us to promote and improve the program. And if you are interested in other free trainings, for myself, I currently cover 6 states. I cover the state of Nevada, Arizona, Utah, New Mexico, and Hawaii. I also cover a portion of the Dallas-Fort Worth MSA. If you're in any of those areas, I definitely encourage you to reach out to me via email or via phone. I'm always happy to provide free training, provide support via email for just any of your basic data questions that you may have. Typically, I get a lot of emails from grant writers, usually the day before their grants due, asking for data. I'm always happy to provide it if I'm available. If I'm not available, there's a toll-free number you can use. There's an email, census.askdata. For anyone that's outside of the states that I currently cover, definitely encourage you. If you want in-person training or you'd like to schedule a specific webinar for your organization or just for yourself, you can still use that toll-free number or that census.askdata email to request free training. So with that, we'll go ahead and quickly open up the lines for any questions that we may have. Chrissy, if you can go ahead and let the audience know they can ask. We probably just have time for 1 or 2 questions, and then I want to go and make sure we have enough time to go online, and then I'll open it up again for questions after the live demo.
Thank you. If you would like to ask a question, please press star followed by 1. Please ensure that your phone is unmuted and record your name clearly when prompted. Again, that is star followed by 1 to ask a question. To withdraw your request, please press star 2. One moment, please, while we wait for questions to come in. Our first question comes from Rick. Sir, your line is open.
Yes. What I'm looking for is you have so much data and so many links out there. Where is this dashboard that I can go to first? That I can go to all of those links? Is it just census.gov? I know this is
so
simple.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's a really great question, because that question is exactly why we are creating a new platform called data.census.gov, or have created that platform, I should say. So that platform is basically going to integrate eventually with the Census Bureau census.gov website, because of the very reason that you just pointed out. On census.gov, and since we're going to go online anyway, I'll go ahead and take us there now. So on census.gov currently, you'll notice there's lots of different ways you can browse by topic. You can explore data. There's explore data main. So for right now,
Eric?
I think to address, yes.
Eric, this is Deb. I apologize for interrupting you. Can you please share that screen?
Oh, yes. Sorry, I was thinking that people could share it. Let me.
I'll let you know when we can see. There we go. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. So as you can see on census.gov right now, you can browse by topic. If I click on any one of these topics right now, let's say I want to look at voting and registration. If I click there, I've got some ways where I can go data, voting tables, some data sets, some tools, some visualizations here, redistricting, electorate profiles. So topics is sometimes, a good way to start. If I come up here to my search bar and I type in, let's say, veterans, and then, click on search, I'm going to get, a list like this. Now, if I go into the new data tool, data.census.gov, that helps. So if I go into the new data tool and I type in veterans here, and it's going to say owner, I get, some suggestions, and I hit search. In the new data platform, it's going to recognize, and you've instantly got data, it's going to recognize, and you've got maps here, so I can view all maps. I can go right to maps. You're going to see that the new, how this is going to be integrated into census.gov is it's going to recognize complete sentences and allow users not just to look at some of the basic statistics that are out there, but all the data related to that particular topic. So if you're looking for data on poverty or education or something like that, and you want to get a profile here, you can do that just by clicking on the state. There's still going to be an advanced search feature, just like there is in American Fact Finder for the deep data diving, but for people that want like the quick data, it's going to be designed so that you don't have to navigate all over the Census Bureau website to figure out, hey, where can I find, this specific data I'm looking for, whether it's on businesses or housing, because right now the best place for that is if you go to Explore Data, and you can either click on Explore Data Main or you could click on Data Tools and Apps, and that'll give you a full list of different data tools, and which you can click on multiple pages to see, and there's quite a bit. So they're trying to take all of these different data tools basically and merge them into one platform, one hopefully user-friendly platform, which is why I encourage you to definitely check out data.census.gov and provide that feedback.
But that
so right now, though, I'm sorry. So for right now, though, I would say Explore Data, and then you can click on Data Tools and Apps. And that'll get you a lot of different data tools. The presentation will also be emailed to everybody following the webinar, so it'll have all the links in there, so you can just click on the presentation and click on all those different links that I showed you, and for the different tools from different programs as well.
And so this is available at that census.gov, and then we see this dashboard here, and you're saying go to Explore Data and browse.
Right, that's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you go back to, let's say, anytime you want to get back to the home page, just click on our logo over here.
Okay.
That takes you right back to our home page, and then Explore Data right there, and then Data Tools and Apps will give you a full list of our data tools.
Okay. And one more question. I'm sorry, I have to be redundant on this. Now, you mentioned something is available now, but it's going to be replaced by something else. And I was trying to take notes, and I missed what the continuity was. What is
right? No, exactly. So that is this particular tool right here. This is the data.census.gov platform. So this tool right here is what's going to replace American Fact Finder and eventually be merged into census.gov. So right now, if you go to census.gov, you get this big search bar. And as you saw when I typed in veterans, I got a very different response for a web page. I got a list of different links. I got, of course, the link here for the main veterans page that we have to get data on veterans. If I click here, this is a quick way to look at some visualizations for each state, some publications we have, different visualizations you can click on as well, some of the latest news, publications, and then, of course, visualizations here that we have. So you can kind of quickly do it by topics if you wanted to. But now if I go to the data.census.gov platform, when I typed in veterans here, as you can see, I got maps, I got data, I got different pages as well, view all pages, view all maps, view all tables. So this is going to get merged into census.gov, and that's what this response would look like once it does. So this response that you see now again, will go away. It helps if you spell correctly.
So census.gov, the American Fact Finder is in there, but it'll be replaced by.
That's correct.
Can you finish my sentence right there?
Well, it's not. So I guess replaced is it's going to become an archive tool until it does eventually go away. It'll still be there, but essentially no new data will be released into American Fact Finder. That new data is now going to be released onto data.census.gov.
Data.census.gov. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. So I know I wanted to ask, let's just do one more question if there is one, and then we'll go into the demo, and then that way I can still try to get time for any other questions at the end.
At this time, I'm showing no further questions.
Perfect. Okay. So with that, and again, I'll open it up. We'll open it up again for questions at the end. I do want to take you to just kind of show you. I mean, I've already showed you a couple of things, but there are some other great resources through the Census Bureau that a lot of people just aren't familiar with. And so one of them I like to show that, especially when it comes to my grant writers out there, they do love our narrative profile. So I always make sure, if those of you that have never received the American Community Survey, have never seen it, don't know what it is, if you simply go onto Surveys and Programs in your browser, I'm sorry, not in the browser, but in this sort of topic browser here, you can go and find ACS located right underneath the 2010 census. And if you click on that link, it will take you to the main American Community Survey page where you can actually look at, things about the survey that maybe you didn't know before in terms of why do we ask each question. That's usually a common question that we get in regard to the ACS. How come they're asking specific questions, some very personal questions in regard to income or commuting to work. So you can click on all these different topics and find out what is the reason for these questions. Why do we ask them? Well, in short, there has to be a federal need or a federal justification for every single question on the American Community Survey. And that does include also the questions on the decennial census. All those questions have to be approved by Congress, and once they're approved, then we can go ahead and ask them. But there has to be a federal need or a federal justification to ask all the questions that are on either the ACS or the decennial census or any of the other surveys and programs that we have out there. So if you've never received the ACS, you can still go and look at About the Survey, and underneath you'll see where it says Sample Form and Instructions. You can actually download a sample copy of the form right there. You can also look at ways that you can respond if you wanted to. And then we have something called the data link here where you could click on Data, Tables, and Tools. And this is kind of a quick way. I like the data tables and tools in the ACS webpage because it's a quick way to get some data profiles if that's what I'm interested in, or narrative profiles. So the data profiles will give you a lot of robust information covering 4 of the characteristics that you saw previously in the presentation related to social, economic, housing, and demographics. So in this tool, you cannot get down to the track level, which you would be able to do in American Fact Finder, and of course the new data dissemination platform, data.census.gov. But here it's just a quick way to get data, at least down to the, whether it's for the state, the county, or the place, which you now know is the terminology used to define cities and towns, including CDPs. So if I was to come over here, and let's say we click on Texas, and I select place, then it just says choose your place, and you're going to see all these different cities and towns in the state of Texas that I can select. So I can go ahead and go down here, and I can look at, it doesn't matter, how rural, et cetera, we will have the data, hopefully, unless there's data suppression that occurs. But we can randomly just select a city, get data profile, and now I can click on any of these links, and it'll take me to the American Fact Finder tool where I can look at data for the city coming from the data profile 2, or DP2 table that shows the selected social characteristics for the 2013-2017 5-year estimates. And you can see here that you can scroll down and see all the various data on this just one particular data table, and there's 4 altogether. So again, you have the social, economic, housing, and demographic data profiles. This is just the social characteristic data profile. So it's just a quick way to get a lot of amazing data to give you a really broad overview of a particular geography. Now, of course, this is in your table form, so you're not getting a visualization, and you're only looking at one geography. So you cannot actually create a map of a tool. Mapping is a great feature in AFF. We know that mapping is something that is also, of course, going to be available in the data.census.gov platform. So you'll be able to do all that kind of neat stuff as well. Here in AFF, you need at least 2 or more of the same geography to actually create a map. So that is why it's not highlighted. But there's going to be some bookmarking features as well to take you right back to any table in AFF, add remove geographies, different modifications that are allowed, including the print feature. But getting back to that page where we have the data profile that you can easily access, you can also click underneath that. You'll find the narrative profiles. And the narrative profiles are really great, quick way to also not just get data at a tabulated level, but actually look at data from and visualize the data as well. So it's a very simple to use tool where you could just simply either click on your county or place or tract. Now, if you know where your tract is, great. Right now, they used to have a map where you could actually visualize and zoom into specific tracts, but right now it's only in the list mode because it's still in beta version. But you could also do zip code tabulation areas if you wanted to, let's say, look in American Indian, Alaska Native areas. You'll get a full list of those as well. So this could be a quick way to say, I want data on a tribal area. So you could look at, let's say, an Elko colony and get narrative profile. And hopefully not wait too long. And here you can see you get households by families, and it's an interactive map. And if you want to look at the data in the table format, just click on that link and you get the data tabulated for you instantly. So it's really great. They've recently refreshed this tool to make it look a lot cleaner and nicer, kind of mirroring a little bit more of what the Census Reporter profiles look like, as you can see. So it's definitely getting improved. Remember, it's still in its beta format, so you may find some glitches in there. But as I mentioned before, please provide your feedback. These tools, and every one of these tools, you'll have a feedback button, and they only get better with that feedback that comes in from the people that are actually using these data tools. So as you scroll down, you get computer internet use now. That finally is available in the 5-year data sets. Was not previously available in the 5-year data sets because the question was not introduced to the ACS until 2013. So we finally are able to look at that type of data as well. You'll notice one flaw to this particular tool is that you do not have the ability to download yet. You can copy everything here and paste it into a Word document or do a save page as and save it as a PDF. There is that option. We're hoping that a download tool button will be available in the future. But that's just another kind of quick, easy way to look at data. The most common data tools that people like to look at, though, are some of the ones that people don't even are some of the ones that people might overlook quite often. But now you can see here this PopClock. If you actually click on this tool, this is a really quick way to get data on the population, and not just for the U.S. population, which you can scroll down and see these interactive graphs that you have available, and most populous states and counties and cities that you can click on. And here's all the source of the data. And if you want to get more information and even look at population projections, which we have going all the way out to 2060, you can even click here. It'll take you to that specific page where you can look at what the future populations are going to look like. Here, if you click on the World tab, what's really neat about this particular data tool is that you can, aside from the really scary PopClock that never slows down, never stops spinning, is that you can actually highlight your mouse on any one of these countries that you see here, and instantly you're looking at the population as well as the different exports and imports from the U.S. If you click on any one of these and you click on that country, and hopefully it works, and it doesn't seem to be working. Oh, there we go. So you'll see that you instantly get data. So you're looking at a basic profile and providing comparison data as well to the U.S. and the world. You're looking at trade data for the top exported goods by U.S. state or territory. Here you're looking at what those three states are. And you also get the current and projected population data for that specific country that you select. So not just the current, but the projected population for all those countries. If you're looking where is this data coming from, you can see here you've got all these different sources. And I always encourage people to check out our trade data on USA Trade Online. This used to be a paid website. Now it is, like all the rest of the data on census.gov, it's free. All our data is public domain. I often get the question of, can we profit legally from census data? And the simple answer is yes. This is all public domain. It is your data. So if you want to quickly access our APIs to create data apps, data tools, you're on your own, you can go to our developers portal here under data, and you would find that under Explore Data as well. Under Explore Data, you'll see that link for developers under that data tools and apps. So here you can see where you could go into our Slack forum where we have lots of conversations with developers out there. You can download a key if you wanted to. If you needed to make over 500 calls, it's not required, but if you're making over 500 calls, you can do that. And then look at our available APIs here. So all that information. If you want to learn more about the APIs, you can make a request for free training, free webinars. We'll walk you through how to use our API to access data as well. Getting back to looking at the exploring the data tools. So if we go back to our data tools and apps here, you can see that we have the Engagement Navigator, which is showcased in the presentation, and the table creator. But one of the great, simple to use tools, and there's going to be webinars that will go. I did one recently. There's going to be more that will focus solely on this tool, is the Census Business Builder. This is a tool that I think is really quick and easy, allows data users to actually look at data not just from the American Community Survey, but also look at data from the ACS as well. So you have two editions. Not just from the ACS, but from the Economic Census and County Business Patterns, consumer spending data, lots of different data sources that are used in this tool. You also have the Regional Analyst Edition, which allows data users to aggregate data instantly by clicking on a geography and clicking on another geography within the mapping tool. and instantly aggregating the data therein. So in the Small Business Edition, you've got some easy to read icons here. And then if you don't see a business listed, if you were selecting one like construction and you don't see your business listed, you can still type in a different industry here below, either by using the title, the keyword, or the specific makes code. So let's say I was looking at healthcare, but I was more interested in like nursing homes, and I don't see there's home health care, outpatient care, but maybe I want to look specifically. I could type in nursing, and I'm going to see all these different industry codes pop up. Keep in mind, the longer the industry code, the less data that there's going to be at lower level geographies. If you go from 2 to 4, you're probably going to get more data, or the 3-digit there. If you get into the 6-digit codes, the more detailed data, the more detailed industries, depending on how low the geography you go, you may find that there's not going to be a lot of data available because data suppression may occur to protect individual or business privacy. So here you can click on My Location, or you can type in a state. So if I type in Clark County, and hopefully it doesn't take that long. Apologize for the technical difficulty. It usually doesn't take. There we go. So here we go. And let's say I'll just do Nevada, and I'll click Go to Map. And now I can really quickly, just by those 3 steps, I can very quickly look at data. This is just by county, but if I zoom in on the map here, you got the plus and minus button that allows you to zoom in. You can also use your mouse, your scroll wheel to do that as well. Now I can click on city or town over here. I can also come up to my search bar and select that city or town, or type it in, or use my location as well, and I can adjust the zip code just by clicking it. The further you zoom in will allow you to actually look at the data at that lower level geography for this tool, which is the census tract. So I can now look at data by tract, but what I'm looking at here on the screen is actually total population. If I want to look at business data, I need to go back to either state, county, city, town, or zip code. But for now, if I want to go ahead and look at some other variation, other variables, let's say look at percent Hispanic, I can select that and look at that data. If I click on any one of these tracks, it's going to then down here give me a little bar that's going to pop up and show me more detailed information related to that specific geography. So there's a download button. Of course, you can download. You can still create a report as well. There's some other cool features. Like I said, I encourage you to check out some other webinars that will go more into these features. You can even apply a filter. If I click on the Create a Report button, which I could have done from the previous page, you'll see that there's the ability to actually download a PDF format or Excel as well. So here you can download Excel, CSV, or PDF. And in the reporting, you just get all the data that I wouldn't otherwise be able to visualize in the mapping tool. So nursing care facilities, not going to be any data because we're looking at the tract, and there is no business data available at the tract level. So you can also modify the report to only show what you want as well and configure contents. Here under you'll see consumer spending. This is available down to the tract level, as well as the ACS data. And these two are primarily based on geography, not on the business you select. So if you only want ACS data or you're interested in that consumer spending data, then select any industry you want because the main thing will be the geography. So as you go through our website, let me click back here. Whoops, let me go back here. And you can see that you can explore data, and you can go to data tools and apps. You can even go into our visualizations as well. You'll see lots of great visualizations we produce almost every week on different topics. And this is all, if you click on any of these, you'll have the ability to embed, to download as a JPEG or a PDF. We also have our geography as well. So if you clicked on geography, here you can see where there's that interactive maps page that I talked about before. You can click on all these different tools to access and visualize data. All right, so with that, I know we have a little bit of time left. Christy, can we go ahead and open up the lines for questions, please?
Thank you. As a reminder, if you would like to ask a question, please press star followed by 1. Please remember to have your phone unmuted and record your name clearly when prompted. One moment, please. At this one moment. We do have a question from Lori. Your line is open.
Yes, I was just curious what the difference is between the Community Population Survey and the American Community Survey.
Well, are you referring to the current population survey?
Yes, I'm sorry.
It says the American Community Survey. If you go here under surveys and programs, there's the CPS, and that's where we collect. That's a monthly survey, and it's a much smaller sample size. I believe it's about 66,000 a month versus the ACS, which is 290,000 plus. The difference is also there's a lot more questions on the American Community Survey than there are in the CPS, and the CPS is primarily used to derive those data related to those unemployment numbers that come out every month, income, poverty as well, that we do provide annually from the CPS.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, and if you want, you can click, if you want to look at all the surveys and programs, you could click there, or you could just click on that link, and you can kind of learn a little bit more about this survey right here. We are transparent. We are absolutely transparent with every survey and program that we have because we have to be, obviously. So,
thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. At this time, I show no further questions.
Excellent. Well, thank you all very much. That actually does conclude our webinar. We're right at our stopping time. This webinar, the presentation will be emailed to everybody following the webinar, and the recording will be posted onto the Census Academy website. That may take a little bit of time, but it will eventually be on there. Again, if you have any need for trainings or you have any questions related to census data, you can use that data, census.askdata@census.gov email. You can click down here. There's a button right there. You see request free data training for you or your organization where you have those questions. Definitely check us out on YouTube. Learn more about all the different data that's available to you and how to access it. And definitely keep in mind that we've got a lot more webinars coming up within this series. So thank you all very much for your time, and have a great day.
Thank you. That does conclude today's conference. Thank you all for participating. You may disconnect at this time.